Thank you very much, and thank you to everyone for inviting me along this evening. I'd like to use the very first part of my 7 minutes to extend a sincere note of gratitude, thanks, and admiration for all of those people currently campaigning at what I call the front line. I'm talking about those people who are ensconced in tunnels, up trees, or gluing themselves to paintings. People like myself do what we can, but at this point in time, not many of us are at the forefront of this campaign. And I just want all of those participants to recognise how we admire their bravery, their commitment, and how valuable their task is. So thank you very much to those people. I need a motivation to do anything. That includes being here tonight. I have to ask myself what motivates me to want to participate. I'll tell you, I'm disenfranchised, I'm disgruntled. Frankly, I'm pretty desperate. I'm certainly scared about the future of life on our planet. And equally, I'm very, very angry. I was a very angry young man. I'm now a very angry old man. The difference between the young and the old is that I've recognized that I need to channel my anger into something creative. Screaming and shouting is not going to solve a problem. Using your imagination, your skills and ability might just. So why am I currently angry? Well, last week wasn't a great week, was it? On the Faroe Islands, 250 miles from the coast of Scotland, 100 or more bottlenose dolphins were senselessly slaughtered by the Faroese. Despite our campaigning following the extermination of 1,400 white-sided dolphins last year and a debate being held in Parliament, nothing has changed. And these people, the richest island nation in the world, dependent on their fishing industry, which the UK is a keen supporter of, still supplying fish, I would highlight to Russia as well, went out and killed more than 100 dolphins. Now, I know that you know that those animals are sentient, long-lived, sociable. They come complete with a language, a vocabulary. They even have names for one another. So I have a great deal of concern that is indicative of the fact that we are not treating the world's wildlife with sufficient respect. But again, here we are, pointing overseas, blaming someone else, the Faroese, for slaughtering their dolphins. What's happening in our own backyard? Well, it's worse. I was on Sunday morning due to rise really early, a drive down to Somerset to show my support for a camp by the Queen Camel Oak, a 400 to 600-year-old oak tree, which was in the path of a slip road to a public school and slated for destruction. And very sadly, on Saturday, the bailiffs came in under the auspices of the government. They cleared the camp. And even whilst the protesters were being taken from the tree, they were cutting its boughs off. And by Sunday morning, the tree was in pieces. And that's an organism which, from my ilk, represents the source, the support mechanism for the richest diversity of terrestrial life in the UK. We know, for instance, that those oaks support more species of plant, insect, and therefore birds, bats, and everything else. So they're highly symbolic. It's a totemic part of our landscape. And we in the UK have only 13% forest cover. We've got the lowest forest cover of any country in Western Europe. And so whilst we, those of us on this call, will frequently call out other nations across the world for their grotesque acts of deforestation, let's not forget that deforestation is continuing afoot here after a history which has reduced our nations to a point where it's the lowest in Western Europe. Did it get any worse? Well, yeah, it did get worse, actually, because DEFRA, the government statutory body, which is meant to be there to safeguard our natural environment as one of its many tasks, decided that they would not publish in 2023 all of the biodiversity indicators. So these are the measured species and habitats which are intensively studied because they represent a very good barometer of our natural health. But DEFRA have said, do you know what? We're going to take a break from giving you the figures. And the reason we suppose that they're going to take that break from giving us the figures is because it's all bad news. And that's, again, what stokes my desperation. I put a ladybird on my finger at some point in 1963 and fell in love with the natural world. And ever since that time, I've sought to better understand that natural world, and then ultimately to better understand it so that I can protect it. Since 1970, we've lost 68% of the world's wildlife. And since 1975, we've lost 90 million birds from the UK. I can't even imagine what 90 million birds look like. I suppose it depends on the size of the bird. I was watching the Lionesses valiantly playing their sport at Wembley the other night, and I imagined, well, how deep would it be if we got 90 million birds and put them onto the pitch in Wembley? How deep would that be? I can't calculate. And I think that many of us, certainly those involved with the UK's environmental NGOs, have lost touch with what we're doing. We keep trotting out these statistics. We measure the declines and changes in distribution of UK species with greater accuracy than any other nation on Earth, due to the highly qualified skills of our naturalists here, both professional and amateur. We know what's happening. We are measuring it, and we have been tinkering around the edges. So yes, we've demonstrated that we have the capacity to regenerate, store, reintroduce. We have a toolkit for recovery. But as everyone on this call knows, we have not been rolling out that toolkit with sufficient urgency and breadth. And as a consequence, we are in a nation which is one of the most nature deprived anywhere on Earth, which is difficult to countenance because we are a nation of animal lovers, apparently, both domestic and wild. And yet on our watch, to my eternal shame, carried as an enormous burden of guilt on my shoulders, is the fact that in my time as an active conservationist, we've lost all of these species. And as Bill has highlighted, and I could do the same, not from a climate perspective, but from a biodiversity perspective, we have passed tipping points for many of these communities, species, and habitats. We are staring down the barrel of their destruction, and it will happen on our watch. So we could just give up, put our binoculars, our microscopes, and our magnifying glasses in the drawer and go and have a party. But I love the natural world. I've loved it since that ladybird took off and spiraled into a blue sky above 10 Cleveland Road in Southampton. And I'm not going to give up. I will fight in what is now becoming rapidly a last stand for the natural world. I'm speaking here at this point from the perspective of someone who is a naturalist. But what we all know, again on this call, is that our health, that health of life on Earth, is intrinsically linked. We are dependent on environmental ecosystems, services Earth, the fish we harvest from the sea, the plants we take from our dying soils. We have to act, if even selfishly and arrogantly for ourselves, in order to preserve that life. I think in order to do that, we need to change some tack. And we've heard about that this evening. The tinkering around the edges is not going to work. This is the time for significant action. They won't fix it. The people that we've elected to govern us at this point in time are not going to solve these problems for us. I went to COP. I came back, I think, probably clinically depressed. I didn't expect much else, but I was horrified by the inadequacy of what was taking place there. We can fix little things ourselves, and self-empowerment to make a difference is a very important motivational tool. So yes, we should all do our little bit. We should recycle. We should cut down on our meat. We should use more public transport. But ultimately, as individuals and even small communities, that is not going to solve the problem. We must force the people that we've currently elected to govern us to make seismic, significant changes of the type that Just Stop Oil are campaigning for, the cessation of the further research and drilling for future fossil fuels in the UK. It's that level that we are now needing to concern ourselves with. That's why we need to motivate people in October. And in order to motivate those people, I think that we've got to, again, continue to think anew. And it is happening. I'm seeing more imagination, more originality, more new ideas in the campaigns that we undertake. but we are fighting a billionaire press and a media that's left us scrabbling for untruths for decade after decade. And to try and break through that and make news and communicate our concerns, to further enlarge our community, we need to communicate with them. And that means not plying the same old tricks time and time again, because frankly, folks, they won't get news, they won't get attention, and they won't get the sympathy and the empathy that they require. When it comes to dealing with the world's wildlife and wildlife within the UK, one thing that we need to think about is what I call entry-level activism. We want to embrace as many different people as possible. I know full well that we could ask all the members of the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds to go and glue themselves to an oil terminal, and only about 6 would turn up. We need to give these people things to do so they grow in confidence. They grow to understand that their participation is fruitful and productive. And I believe that as things become more critical, as temperatures rise, as prices rise, as inequalities can continue to separate and become greater, then more and more of those people will come on board. But we need activism for everyone. We also need to stop division. We need to be thinking about the crucial issues central to our cause, not divide and conquer ourselves. We need to make sure that when we're talking about politics and our political aims, as important as they are, as fundamental as they are to our success, and we on this call all understand that, and we probably share our leanings when it comes to all of those aspects of needing better political action and better deals when it comes to inequality, that we keep the core issues at the forefront and we develop not division but commonality in our community. In order to drive that, we need a transition. Not everyone will just switch overnight. Animal Rebellion are doing brilliant things. They're getting the message out there. This week, pouring milk all over the floor of Harrods, blockading dairy and supermarkets. I see it, you see it, everyone sees it, everyone asks what's it about, the movement grows. There's no question about that. But we've got to make sure that we bring all of those people together with that commonality. And that means that transition. So people will maybe think, well, do you know what? I might try some oat milk this week because they didn't pour that on the floor. But I'm still going to have a cup of tea with some cream in it. Transition requires our tolerance, another key word I think that we need to embrace. And in order for tolerance to function, to bring everyone on our journey, although it needs to be an increasingly rapid journey, we need kindness. Kindness needs to be at the core of the way that we operate. We need to make sure that transition, tolerance, and kindness are very much part and parcel of what we will need to achieve. I look forward to the 1st of October. I look forward to being able to help, assist, participate in more direct actions, peaceful direct actions, which will drive change. But as Bill has outlined, the backdrop and the arena for that change will become increasingly uncomfortable. We need to make sure that we are making a difference. And in order to do that, I think we need a little love. And we need a little love for the natural world, which means not slaughtering dolphins and cutting down trees. And we need a little love for each other too. Thank you very much indeed. I'm afraid I have another meeting, so I can't stay for the breakout rooms, but my absence will hopefully allow someone else to participate. And you have my assurance that as we move into this theatre of desperation, I will be doing everything I can to stand side by side with every one of you tonight to try and bring my small differences to our larger needs. Thank you very much.